He is one of the top lightweight fighters in the world, and I am always happy to speak to this guy. We go back quite a long ways, and I haven't had a chance to catch up with him since his huge knockout over Tony Ferguson. Welcome in today, Michael Chandler. Michael, how are you?
What's up, Damien? I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to catch up with you. As I said, you're always a very busy guy traveling. You went to London. You're always doing these things. So I'm backtracking a little bit here. So I know this is obviously months later, but man, have you still, how many times at this point have you seen the highlight of you knocking out Tony Ferguson? Is it in the hundreds of thousands at this point?
It has been quite a bit, mainly because social media. I mean, I'm basically tagged on that kick pretty much every day, multiple times a day. So I can't say that it ever gets old. Obviously, you know, when you train as hard as we do as mixed martial artists, it's hard for fans to understand. But when you train as hard as we do, and you sacrifice as much as we do, to be able to have highlight reel type of knockouts like that, also knowing that it could be you at any point in time. You know, you can make a highlight reel or be made a highlight reel. You can make a meme, be made a meme. When you realize that we are fighting within fractions of inches, is just, you know, it's cool to see, and people love it. So we'll see if it's KO of the year, hopefully.
Yeah. Now, you've had a lot of big finishes. Now, I'm not going to say the Tony Ferguson win was the biggest win, because you obviously had championship wins, things like that I'm sure you would probably say were bigger in terms of your career, the achievement kind of thing. But in terms of your finishes, I think of Benson Henderson, I think of Patricky Pitbull, I think of the submission over Eddie Alvarez. Does this top the list in your favorite finish? Not necessarily biggest win, but would you say this is now your favorite finish?
I would say so. I mean, I think, you know, the body is an amazing thing. You know, sometimes it gets knocked out stiff. Sometimes it gets knocked out really loose and just kind of loosey-goosey rubbery, if you will. Sometimes guys fall flat on their face. Sometimes they fall flat on their back. Like that's why we watch the sport, to see somebody, you know, get knocked out. And this was definitely one of those that people said, you know, ooh, that was a rough one, you know. So I by no means, you know, it kind of sounds sick to say that it was, you know, satisfying, because, you know, ultimately I respect every guy that I step in the cage with, and want the best for them and their health. But obviously we are playing a dangerous game called mixed martial arts. And the way that fight ended, the way that his body crumbled, the way that the foot landed right on the chin, it was easily the most, I think, kind of the most exciting, best knockout of my entire career. Like you said, not the biggest win that I've had, but the cleanest and most dominant, and kind of most scary, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and also you're the first person to ever do that to Tony Ferguson. I mean, yes, Justin Gaethje had a TKO win over him, but, you know, Tony was still on his feet. You know, he was still kind of, I won't say complaining, but he was, you know, he definitely still kind of raised his hands up when that fight got stopped. Now, I think that was a perfectly fine stoppage, but you're the first person to ever do that to him. I mean, again, not that you're sitting there, you know, wearing a t-shirt that says I knocked out Tony Ferguson, but knowing who that guy has fought, knowing the wars that guy has gone through, to be the first guy to ever actually knock him out, that is a feather in your cap, right? Like, I'm not saying you're walking around the billboard saying I knocked him out, but it is a cool achievement.
Yeah, no, of course. You know, when you talk about it and you bring it up, yeah, there's certain guys that you just, you know, you don't expect certain things. You know, you don't expect certain guys to get submitted because their BJJ is so good. You don't expect certain guys to get knocked out because their chin is so good. And yeah, Tony Ferguson never being knocked out cold. Dan Hooker never being knocked out to the head. He had been knocked out to the body. So TKOing him for the first time in his career, that was another feather in my cap. You know, you're trying to just create not just wins, but dominant wins to continue to prove to the fans, to prove to yourself, to prove to the media, to prove to your family why you train so hard and why you make the sacrifices, and that you are one of the best in the world. And I think being the first to do that to Tony was definitely something that you know, I can hang on my Mount Rushmore of mixed martial arts career whenever I finally do hang it up down the line. And yeah, we got the finish, we got the win, and we're gonna see what's next.
Absolutely. So with that being said, Michael, coming out of that fight, I'll be honest, I just assumed we would be talking right now about the matchup that you got booked against Conor McGregor. I just thought that was going to happen. It seemed like a foregone conclusion. Conor wanted it, you wanted it, the UFC was interested. It all seemed like the pieces were falling in place, but now we've heard, sounds like Conor maybe not till the end of the year, maybe early 2023, which again, I understand he had a broken leg. I don't think anybody should rush back from that. I know I talked to Chris Weidman early in his time coming back from the broken leg. He's like, oh yeah, I think I'm gonna be back. I think he said this summer. Well, a broken leg's a serious injury. You can't rush that. You got to take time. Now we've heard, of course, the rumors swirling. I'm sure you've heard it. You know about it, the fight with Dustin Poirier. So can you give us any kind of update? Like, where are you at in terms of what's next? I know you just went back down to Florida, to train with your team, of course, at formerly Sanford MMA, now Killcliff MMA. But like, kind of give me a sense like where you're at right now.
First ththings first, as you talked about Conor, I mean, when you talk about Weidman, when you talk about Conor, when you talk about these real leg breaks, not the ones that just kind of, a small little hairline fracture and you got to wear a boot for a couple of weeks. You're talking about cracking the bone in half, breaking it in half, having to have having a rod surgically inserted into the bone. You're talking about real surgery stuff. And obviously, yes, have I called out Conor? Do I want to fight Conor? Do I think me and Conor would be the biggest fight that we can make in mixed martial arts? Yes, I do. But I also, the guy has earned the right to be able to sit out as long as he needs to heal, because the sport of mixed martial arts and the UFC, quite frankly, is better when Conor McGregor is fighting and is in it and is active. So he needs to come back at the right time when he is healed. That being said, I mean, at this point, it looks like everyone else is matched up except for myself and Dustin Poirier. Obviously he's been a guy that's been on my radar. I spoke to you before. When I first came into the UFC, we asked two guys to fight and both turned down the fight. Number one was Tony Ferguson. I have since now fought him. And the other one was Dustin Poirier. Now, I'm not implying that they, turned down the fight because they were scared of me. I was a brand new guy coming in from outside of the UFC. Made a lot of sense for them to, fight someone else inside the top five, a little bit of a less risky fight, if you will. But now, as I've solidified myself and cut my teeth in the UFC and legitimate top guy now, it's time for me to win another fight and then go win that title. I truly believe that Charles Oliveira beats Islam in October, and then I fight next for the title when I beat Dustin Poirier or whoever they put in against me. But a lot can change in this sport. As of right now, that's the rumors that are swirling. That's what sounds like the fans want to see. So we'll see later on this winter time. It might be him and I. So
yeah, I'll circle back to Dustin in a second. I do want to follow up real quick on Conor because the Conor fight is the biggest. Let's just be honest. That's the biggest fight you could get. It would be a massive, massive fight. We both agree on that. And again, I think Conor wants it too. Conor has said he would like to fight you. So again, it makes all the sense in the world. But is there a bit of a time limit on the waiting game? Like I know you told me before, like waiting for Conor is worth it, but there has to be an expiration date, right? Like, now that we're hearing maybe 2023, that means you'd be out the rest of this year. And I'm sure you don't want to sit out the entire 2022 still with the uncertainty of when he's coming back. Maybe it's January, maybe it's February, maybe it's not till April or May. We don't know. Is that kind of the problem with the Conor fight right now, is there's just no definitive timeline when he's going to fight again?
Yeah, I mean, that is the only problem that we have right now. And truthfully, like you said, if there was a guaranteed, hey, this fight is definitely happening, I would have no problem waiting a couple extra months into January, February, even March of next year. But this is the sport of mixed martial arts. A lot changes every single day. And you're also talking about the biggest combat sports icon on the planet. There's rumors out there of him fighting Floyd Mayweather. There's rumors of him never coming back. There's rumors of him coming back, by the end of the year. We don't know when Conor's coming back. So with that amount of uncertainty, it would be really, I think, foolish to hitch your wagon to that fight itself. Do I want that fight? Of course. Do I think that fight is going to happen eventually? Absolutely. But my number one goal isn't to fight Conor. It's to win the title. My number one goal is to be the UFC champion, to be the number one guy on the entire planet. So I got to get through somebody else in the top five, get another win underneath my belt, and then go fight Charles or Islam, whoever wins that fight in October. Probably in the first quarter of next year. I'll be your champion by March, April, May of next year.
I love it. All right, so let's talk about the Dustin Poirier situation, because, Michael, I mean this as a compliment. You speak your mind when it comes to fights. You speak your mind when it comes to opponents. You have no problem giving your predictions on how a fight's going to play out or how you think someone else's fights are going to play out. But outside of that, and again, I mean this as a compliment, you're like the least controversial guy in the sport. You're not the guy who takes cheap shots. You're not the guy who says things about people's families. You got a family. You got two kids, which, by the way, I haven't spoken to you since you had your other son. Congratulations there. I forgot to mention that at the top of the interview.
Thank you. Thank you.
But
thank you, brother.
You're not that guy. You've never been that guy. We go back all the way to the beginning of your career. You've never been that guy. So when I saw the thing with Dustin Poirier at the UFC event where he's shouting at you and cursing at you, and listen, be clear, I know Dustin very well. I like Dustin very much. Dustin's an incredibly nice guy, does a lot of great things outside of the sport. And I'll be honest, Dustin's not really that guy either. He's not the guy to cause trouble or say bad things about people's face. He's got a family himself. And like, if it was Colby Covington, who has attacked him personally on so many occasions, I probably would expect Dustin to say something to him or go up to him and have words or maybe throw a few fists. But that altercation that happened was so weird and out of character. Did it catch you off guard as well? Because from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it was him shouting at you. It wasn't like you were trying to engage with Dustin. That's how it happened. But it was just so bizarre because it just seemed really out of character.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, I agree with you on how Dustin is and how he carries himself and what he does and the champion that he is, the father, the husband that he is, the community servant that he is. I truly believe it. You don't see a lot of controversy coming out of Dustin. That night I was walking down to my seats with my wife, and everybody in the, all the UFC guys have a kind of a security guard that's kind of overseeing them, of course. And all of a sudden they stopped me in my tracks as we were about to sit in our seat because it was that front row and Dustin was down there, and they said, hey, actually stop right here. He's not going to go down there. And I, basically was just like, wait, what's going on here? My seat's over there. And I was going to go sit down. They said, no, come around with me. So we went around the front, kind of between the cage and then the first row. And all of a sudden I just heard some shouting and kind of turned around and realized it was Dustin kind of pointing at me, doing that number. And I could tell that he was talking to me, but I did that way. You talking to me? He talking to me, because it like you said, it caught me completely off guard. I'm not there to get in physical. I'm not there to get in verbal or physical altercations or any kind of controversy, ever. That's not my nature. Quite frankly, I shy away from it. I am a kind of a pacifist by nature in a lot of ways, except for when I go out there and get paid for it inside the octagon. But basically just kind of fought my way over to get closer to him because the security guards they were trying to pull us away, but I was like, hey man, I got to at least see what he's saying, because it was far away, music's playing, lights are flashing everywhere, you can hear the crowd noise. So I couldn't understand what he was saying, and just went over and got close, and he said his piece, and he's got a problem with me. And I also think he's just kind of very hungry for a fight right now. I think he also got into it a little bit with Nate Diaz that night as well. So I think he's looking for a fight. He needs a fight. He wants to get a fight. I think, we're coming up on 8, 9, 10 months since he's been in the cage, so I think he fought last December. So, he's hungry for a fight. He's ready to get back at it. And I was the target that night.
Yeah, it's so weird because I think the quote unquote worst thing, which isn't really bad, when you addressed Dustin after your win over Tony, you basically said you weren't as interested in that fight because he kind of brushed by you a little bit when you came in. He didn't seem interested in fighting you. Kind of, I won't say ignored you, but just kind of brushed you off when you brought up fighting him. He kind of said, "Oh, I'm not interested in that fight." And in turn, you kind of returned the favor. I guess that's the best way to say it. You kind of returned the favor and said, well, I'm not interested in fighting you either. That to me is so not controversial. Like that, again, the things Colby Covington has said, disgusting things about his family, which I don't think anyone should condone. That I understand being upset about. But it was just so weird because like that, again, that's like the least, like I remember when you fought the Pitbull brothers and they said every manner of terrible thing about you, and you always took the high road. You never fired back at them personally. You never tried to go down to that level, the things they were saying about you. You responded, but you never went to the level they were saying about you. It's just such a weird, that seems like the weirdest reason to get upset.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's kind of one of those things where it's just, I think we're very similar to each other, to be honest with you. He and I have had similar paths. We're both kind of, small town kids getting after it. We're sometimes the most similar people, kind of butt heads, if you will. But I do think it does stem back to, him saying, hey, instead of fight Chandler, I'd rather go sell hot sauce. And, I took that as a slight, obviously. But, and then since then, I actually did accidentally, really, in one interview, I completely forgot to mention his name inside the title picture. But it was only, sorry, my son just handed me this.
No worries.
This walkie-talkie we just got. But that was because at that time he was talking about retirement. He was talking about never making 155 again. He was talking about going up to 170. He was campaigning hard for the Diaz fight. So in my mind, he had already left the lightweight division, you know? So I think that's what, you know, kind of set him off or made him not too happy with me. But hey, man, at some point, I'm not really that worried about it. I respect him as a fighter. I respect everybody that I've ever fought. I respect everybody I train with. To live this life is no easy task, especially with the wife, especially with the daughter. For me, especially with 2 sons. So I'm going to enjoy the road. We'll see if this fight gets booked, and if it does, you know, it's going to be fireworks. Because one thing you can't say is that Dustin's ever been in a boring fight, or that I've ever been in a boring fight. So there's going to be fireworks whenever it happens.
You said when you were over in London, you were doing the scrum with media, and you said that, you know, somebody coming after you in that way is not the way to get a fight with you. And I think I know enough about you to say that you're not that guy. Like, you just like Conor, he was very respectful. You know, I know Conor can say crazy things, but Conor, very respectful, liked the fight. Okay, let's book it. Same kind of thing. But now that, you know, it seems like just by process of elimination, Dustin appears to be the guy because there's just nobody else out there. Beneil Dariush is booked. You mentioned Charles and Islam are booked. Obviously, he's just knocked out Tony. You know, Fiziev just fought, but he's out for a while with a broken nose. All the things. So there's really no one else around for you to fight. By process of elimination, does it seem like Poirier's probably going to be the guy?
That's what it seems like, yeah, by process of elimination. And yes, as you alluded to earlier, yeah, I mean, that's definitely not the way to get a fight with me. I mean, and truthfully, I think there could be a misperception or a misconception of what the media or the fans, I mean, not really the media, because you guys understand the sport more, but the casual fan, like, oh, he said something about his mom, so he's going to want to fight him. And it's, you know, it's one of those things where that's not really what motivates us to fight each other. You know, every now and then you get some real grudge matches, but more often than not, those grudge matches actually make sense to move you forward, or title contention. You're never going to see a top 5 guy, you know, look back at the top 25, the number 25 guy, because the 25 guy said something about his mom or his wife. He's never going to do it because it just doesn't make sense in the pecking order or the ladder of mixed martial arts. This one, obviously, Poirier makes sense. But yes, I'm not going to fight him because of that verbal altercation. I'm not going to fight him because I dislike him. I'm not going to fight him to prove something. I'm going to fight him. If I do fight him, I'm going to say yes and sign the contract because I want to win the title. And he's a guy who's ranked ahead of me, deservedly so. And I go out there and beat him, and then get the title.
Yeah. When you came in the UFC, when you signed with the UFC, we did an interview, and I remember you named a few guys at that point. You said, before I'm done, these are guys I need to fight. Khabib was obviously at the top of the list. You know, of course, we know he's now since retired. Gaethje was on that list. Of course, you had the Epic War Fight of the Year with him. A couple other guys, I know Conor, I think, was on the list, but you also did mention Dustin. That's a fight you've always thought about having. You always thought it'd be a fun fight. If it does happen, how do you see that one playing out? Because it is a really fun fight. It is a fight that much like the Gaethje fight, we don't really need to talk about it. We know it's going to be entertaining. We know it's going to be a battle, probably going to be a knockout, going to be a war, however you want to say it. But how do you see that playing out now that you know a little bit more about Dustin, seeing him fight recently, and now I know you got your feet wet in the UFC, all those kind of things. How do you see a fight with Dustin playing out?
I think I've always liked that fight. I've always loved the Dustin Poirier fight. You know, and it's not because he's not a great fighter. It's not because he's not extremely skilled. I've just always watched him from afar and always thought, you know, he's good. But I do think I beat him. I think I've got his number. I think I'm the guy inside of that fire that will continue to put it on him. And he won't be able to finish me. He won't be able to put me away. I'll match him cardio for cardio, strike for strike, wrestling for wrestling, grappling for grappling. And then it comes down to a battle of wills. And I think I win that. I think I win that battle. I truly do. I mean, also, I wake up every morning thinking about being a UFC champion. I've had one crack at it. Dustin's now had a couple cracks at it. And he's talked about going up to 170. I think it's hard for him to make the weight. I think he's talked about retiring. He's talked about passion. He's talked about desire. Does he have it anymore? He's talked about fighting Nate Diaz. We all know what fighting Nate Diaz means, or going after a fight against Nate Diaz. It begs the question, you know, does he truly believe that he is one of the best in the world anymore? I think he's one of the best in the world, but He's also had a couple Conor fights. He's got a little bit of money in the bank. He's getting older. It's hard for him to make the weight. Talked about going up to 170. These are all telltale signs that, I think this is the right time for me to fight him and the wrong time for him to fight me. And that's no disrespect to him. I'm just, I want to compete against him. I want to compete against anybody inside the top 5 who's going to get me toward a title shot. And he's a good boxer, southpaw, counter striker. I think I can and match him punch for punch. I think my boxing and kickboxing, I've always done very well against southpaws. I've never lost to a southpaw. Matter of fact, I've knocked out every southpaw that I have fought. And I like fighting southpaws, man. Power shots all day long.
I love it. I love it. Now, in terms of timeline, here we are in August, of course, and we know some of these cards are already getting booked through October, November. We've already heard some fights getting announced. Do you have ideally, like if they're saying, hey, Michael, we want you to fight Poirier or whoever it is, do you have an ideal date? Like, obviously we got the MSG card coming up in November. That would be big. December's always big. It's the year-end card. You know how big that card is. So, of course, that's a big one. Haven't heard a ton about October. I know we know October is going to be Abu Dhabi. That one's already pretty much filled in terms of pay-per-view. This doesn't feel like a fight night card. Don't get me wrong. This could easily be a main event, but I feel like this is a pay-per-view fight. I think we both know this is a pay-per-view fight. This is not, something you throw on a fight night card, even if it's a main event. So we got November MSG. We got December, which is the year-end card we assume is going to be in Vegas. Do you have a preference?
I think both of those are options. If I had a preference, I'll tell you, I want December in Vegas because, Damon, I've been signed with the UFC now for dang near 2 years, and I haven't fought in Vegas yet. I want to fight in Vegas. I want to feel that fight week in Vegas. I want to see how the UFC, because I've seen it from afar. I've been on fight weeks, but I've never actually fought there in Vegas under the UFC or anywhere or any organization for that matter. But I just I want to experience that. I got to experience MSG a couple months, or I guess almost a year ago now, and I fought there twice now. It's not that I don't want to fight there. I loved fighting there. New York's a huge market, and it's somewhat of a feather in your cap for the UFC to want to put you on the Madison Square Garden card because that means you're one of the big guys or gals that they want to put on the big card. So either of those is great. Timeline works out great for both of those. Definitely not coming back earlier than November. I want to spend some time with my family, healed up, doing some other things as well, and just enjoying life right now. But I am ready to get in there by the end of the year and get into training camp here very soon.
Absolutely. You mentioned it earlier, Michael. I want to circle back to what you said about the upcoming fight in October between Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira. Since fighting Charles Oliveira, you have been one of the guys who've kind of been banging the drum, praising Charles Oliveira for what he's done. We did our conversation last year. You said he's my fight of the year, without a doubt. Like, Charles Oliveira's earned it. He's incredible. All the respect in the world for him. And you've praised him since then. And you picked him to beat Islam Makhachev. Now, maybe you've seen the odds. I'm not a big odds guy in terms of like what the odds makers say. I know it's all about making money, so they make certain things inflated, whatever, to try to make money. But Islam's a pretty heavy favorite. Now, I think Islam Makhachev's incredible. I think he's a monster. I think he's very, very good. But the idea that Charles Oliveira can't hang with a guy like that, to me, is utterly ridiculous. And I like that you've already called your shot. You think Charles is going to win the fight. So let me ask, you believe he's going to win. How does he beat Islam Makhachev? Because there's this perception that he can't, which I think is stupid.
No, it's a very silly perception. And truth be told, I was that guy. I mean, you remember the build up to my fight with Charles. I truly believed that he was going to quit. We'd seen it in the past. We had seen that he wasn't that tough. We had seen that he had a tendency to find a way out in fights. He has proven time and time again, both against me and then Gaethje or Poirier and Gaethje. He was in the fire in those fights and came back and won every single one of them. He has shown his toughness. He has shown his gall. He has shown his continued increase, improvement in his striking, which obviously he's one of the best. He's probably the best grappler in the UFC right now today, for sure. And he's become a very, very effective, basic, long-rangey kickboxer. And he's done very, very well with it. He manages the distance very well. If he does get hurt, he can just pull guard, which actually you saw that in the Gaethje fight and the Poirier fight. He gets hit, he just falls to his back. it's actually a very, very great technique because nobody's going to jump into his guard. Well, I did. I jumped into his guard, but nobody else jumped into his guard because I wasn't scared of the grappling exchange. I wasn't scared of him having my back. I wasn't scared of him having double hooks in or a figure four. Maybe that's just lunacy and ego talking, but I wanted to at least see what it felt like. And, I got out of it. I was the only guy that got out of it, out of me, Poirier, and Gaethje. But I just think nothing against Islam, like you said. You say he's great. You say he looks unbeatable at times, but dadgum, he hasn't really fought anybody. That's really the truth. He beat number 14, and then he beat Dan Hooker, who was on a 3 or 4 fight losing streak. And now people will say, well, one of your wins was against Dan Hooker. So, what are you talking about? I fought Dan Hooker at a different time. He had just went 25 minutes with Dustin Poirier, who at that time was the number 2 lightweight on the entire planet, So I just think Islam's strengths are also Charles's strengths, and Charles' striking is better. And I think Charles is more skilled. I think if Islam can go out there and he actually is that strong, he actually is that dominant with position, then Charles is going to have a long night. But I think Charles is just too slick, too good, and he's going to give him fits on the feet, and it's going to be hard to take Charles, or it won't be hard to take Charles down. But I think Charles wins the grappling exchanges.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and you're absolutely right. Listen, I have nothing but the utmost respect for Islam Makhachev. I do think he's a beast, but we can't argue against the fact that he hasn't faced the top guys yet. He just hasn't. I mean, he hasn't fought you. He hasn't fought Poirier. He hasn't fought Tony. He hasn't fought established top 5 guys, Gaethje, you know what I mean? And maybe he is as good as we all think he is. Maybe he is as good as everyone's saying, but he just hasn't had that chance to prove it yet. Now, this is his chance. If he beats Charles Oliveira, we'll all praise him, but again, he hasn't had that yet. If he had gone out there and beat Justin Gaethje and did it dominantly, maybe we'd have a different story. We just don't know. There is that question about Islam.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like I say, I'm not saying that he's not that good. I'm just saying that we can't say that he is that good yet. It's premature praise, and it's premature praise in the betting odds, like you said. I mean, to make Islam the favorite in that fight is somewhat crazy, I think. And maybe that's just me, sticking up for Charles, because I do, watching Charles and seeing what he's done, resurrecting his career, somewhat of a couldn't be relied on, up and down, win some, lose some kind of journeyman, to now, a very dominant champion on a win streak. So he's definitely one of the best fighters pound for pound in the world, and I think he goes out there and gets the job done.
Yeah. Now, I don't like to ask a lot of what-if questions, Michael, because there's just so many things that can change in this sport. We know that. What our conversation today could completely change 3 days from now, depending on what fights are announced or cards or injuries, things like that happen. But obviously, you're looking at, let's say, December for your next fight. And again, I'm just throwing Poirier out there as the most obvious choice because, again, he's the guy who's out there who's available. So just hypothetically, if that happens. Now, when Charles beat Gaethje and started calling for Conor McGregor, I was one of the only people who said, good, do it. If you want McGregor and you want the payday, go for it. Like, I'm never going to fault you for going out and getting paid for your family, because this is a business at the end of the day. You are providing. You have a wife and kids to provide for. He has kids to provide for. I'm never going to fault anyone for going for the payday. We know Conor is a massive payday. Now, of course, we know that fight's not going to happen. He's going to fight Islam. But if everything goes well and you win in December and you beat Dustin Poirier, what would mean more to you? Would it be the Conor fight, which would be a life-changing, massive payday, pay-per-view headliner, all those kind of things? Or is the title always going to trump that for you in terms of, if you have that option, title versus Conor, what's going to mean more to Michael Chandler?
I think the title, and that's, obviously that's not taking a slight at Conor, but Conor is the biggest fight ever. Conor is a legacy type of fight. It's a Hall of Fame kind of fight. It's the fight that everyone remembers. It's the fight, win, lose, or draw, knockout or submission or decision. It's a fight that everyone's going to remember. But holding UFC gold and attaining my goal, reaching my goal of becoming the number 1 lightweight on the planet. I've been a champion in Bellator, but that didn't mean I was the number 1 guy. Was I a top 10 guy, a top 15 guy, a top 5 guy? I've been there, basically my entire career, ever since I beat Eddie Alvarez in 2011. I've kind of been in that cusp, if you will, are on that cusp. And becoming the number one guy in the world, that's the goal. That's the ultimate goal. And I want that not just for myself, but I want it for my wife, my 2 sons. I want it for my family, my mom and dad, who's made the sacrifices over all those years for me to get here. And I want it for the fans and the people who have supported me since day one. That, so I can host it up and say, we did it, and then the Conor fight after that, that would be the big one. That would be the big one. So it'll be good.
Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, again, assuming everything goes well and you fight and you win in December, title or Conor, I mean, either way, it's not a bad consolation prize, right? Like, if you don't get the title shot for whatever reason, you get Conor, well, that's still a massive fight. And if you don't get Conor, you get the title shot, you get to be champion. So, again, it's not a bad place to be.
Yeah, no, for sure. And hey, if Charles wants to get cute and, or Charles or Islam want to get cute and start calling out Conor and looking for the Conor fight, okay, go ahead and take it. Go take it and chase the Conor fight. We'll do an interim title, whether it's the next contender at, the next contender at 155 and myself. I think at that point I will have solidified myself as the number one contender when I beat Poirier, if it is Poirier. And then, we'll see if those guys continue to defend the belt or if they chase the Conor fight.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's not a bad place to be with those kind of options in front of you. Poirier, Conor, title. It's good. It's good to be in the Michael Chandler business right now is what I'm saying.
It's good, man. It's been a huge blessing. And obviously, like you said, you and me go way back. We've done this dozens and dozens and dozens of times over the last 12 years. And it's been a lot of fun. And, man, I loved my time at Bellator. I loved the people. I loved the fights and the competition. But it's just so much bigger now. So much. I feel like I'm so close to attaining and reaching the goal that I set out for myself. And the platform is huge, and I love everybody that's on this journey with me. And I truly am living the dream. So I'm going to keep on doing it till the wheels fall off.
As you say, my friend, see you at the top, right?
See you at the top, baby. That's right.
Michael, it is always a pleasure. I know you're a very, very busy guy. I always appreciate you giving me the time. Obviously, look forward to seeing you back in action later this year. Hopefully next time we talk is when the fight is booked. You got a date and an official opponent. Enjoy Florida. Please say hello to the family for me. Again, congratulations on another son. Welcome to the Chandler clan. And thank you as always for the time. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you, Damon. I appreciate you, man. See you
we'll talk soon.